You on this big screen. Wow, it's so good to see all of you, this incredible, phenomenal group of women leaders and national leaders. So thank you all for joining us and for being together for this conversation this afternoon. It is an honor to be here with Senator Patty Murray, Chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, Congresswoman DeLauro, Chair of the House Appropriations Committee, my dear friend, Senator Cortez Masto, my dear friend, Congresswoman Lee, and all of the leaders from our nation's most important organizations on gender equity. And I don't need to tell you all, time and again, women and families across the nation have benefited from your leadership. And without you, each one of you, we will not be able to get the American Rescue Plan across the finish line now, which is the point of our discussion today. In 1 year, the pandemic has put decades of the progress we've collectively made for women workers at risk. There are three main reasons for this, as we all know. First, job loss. About 2.5 million women have dropped out or have been forced out of the workforce during the pandemic. Many work in lower wage jobs, jobs that have been undervalued for far too long and underpaid for far too long. Second, small businesses are closing. Last February, around 5 million women were business owners, and 2 months later, by April, 1 in 4 had closed their doors. So my first week in office, I spoke with a group of small business owners, many of whom are women, and they talked about how tough it is right now to keep their businesses up and running while balancing all of their responsibilities at home. In fact, one woman, Caitlin James, held her newborn throughout our conversation, which was by Zoom, because of course she was juggling all of the demands that are her daily struggle. Which brings me to the child care crisis. Because this child care crisis is a double-edged sword. As homes have become makeshift classrooms, many working women have been forced to cut their hours or leave their jobs entirely. And as child care centers have closed, child care providers, many of whom are women, have lost their jobs. At the beginning of the pandemic, the child care sector alone lost nearly 400,000 jobs. Half of those jobs have yet to return. And I know that this is personal for me, this is personal for everyone here. Many of you are working mothers. Many of you are caring for your own parents, sandwiched between 2 generations. And all of you are a voice of women who have been severely impacted by this pandemic, which is why you know it has created a perfect storm for women. And the longer we wait to act, the harder it will be to bring these millions of women back into the workforce. And let me be clear, we all know this. Our economy cannot fully recover unless women can participate fully. So I think we all believe, this is a national emergency. Women leaving the workforce in these numbers, it's a national emergency, and it demands a national solution. So that brings me to the American Rescue Plan, which I know you all are familiar with, you have read, you have helped inform. And we do believe that the American Rescue Plan is a very big part of the solution to this issue. And in many ways. One, it will get immediate relief to women workers, including $1,400 checks to those who need it, and at least $3,000 in tax credits to parents for each of their children. And the beauty of the significance of this is by doing that, we will lift up nearly half of the children who are living in poverty in our country. It will also provide funding, the American Rescue Plan will also provide funding to help schools safely reopen and make a big investment in childcare to help providers keep their doors open. And it will get America vaccinated. So simply put, the American Rescue Plan will help get women back to work. And I'm so grateful for these members of Congress who are championing the key provisions of this bill. And you know that we're so pleased and excited to work with you. And of course, today is about hearing from you and about how the American Rescue Plan speaks to the needs of the women that you represent and how you are helping those women tell their senators and representatives, of course, the four that we have here don't need to be told, they're leading the charge, but how you are helping the women who have so much at stake to share their stories with their members of Congress, telling them what is at stake for their families, because we need your help. We got to get this bill signed into law. Each day of this pandemic is a very long day for folks who have lost their jobs, for the children who are not able to go to school, for the parents who are juggling all of the interests that are important about sustaining and protecting their families. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend and former colleague, as she is well known, a mom in tennis shoes who runs hard in the Senate. Our dear friend, Senator Patty Murray, the chair of the Senate Help Committee. Patty.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Thank you.
It is such an honor to be here with all of you today. The American Rescue Plan really shows a commitment to women as equal partners in our economy and our country's future. Take childcare. We've long had a childcare crisis in this country for everyone, and it has always made things especially challenging for families of color and families who are paid low incomes. And now with COVID-19, childcare providers are struggling to keep their businesses afloat, making it harder for our frontline workers to stay on the job. And guess who's more likely to be working and responsible for childcare in this pandemic? Mom. Women are leaving the workforce because of this. So without support, more childcare providers will close, and childcare workers, who are mostly women, are going to continue to lose their jobs. And whether they're working or not, studies show women also disproportionately are tackling the challenges of remote learning, which is one of the many reasons it is absolutely critical we get our students back to the classroom for in-person instruction safely. The American Rescue Plan provides the resources that our students and schools need and helps families afford childcare and supports our childcare workforce and the providers. Look, our ability to recover from COVID-19 depends on women's ability to recover, which is why we are working so hard to get this bill done. And I'm proud to turn this over to Chair Rosa DeLauro.
Thank you so much, Senator Murray, for the introduction and for your leadership in the Senate. And to you, Vice President, let me just say, you represent everything that millions of American women aspire to, and you are not going to leave them behind. Right. You know, success has so many authors. Together, we have built a coalition, knocked on the door of change, and as women and as elected officials, we bring unique strength and perspective to that struggle. Women are not opting out of the workforce. They are being pushed by inadequate policies. So we have an opportunity not just to throw money at a problem, but to build that architecture for the future. Use this as a moment to address the serious inequities that have been further exposed by the coronavirus pandemic. The American Rescue Plan meets this moment. Millions of children living in families cannot afford to put food on the table, pay rent. We can alleviate child poverty by expanding and improving the child tax credit. The rescue plan increases the value of this credit, makes it fully refundable. That means that 1/3 of children that are left behind are now going to be included. By putting money in people's pockets, it cuts child poverty nearly in half. And it is especially true for Black children, Hispanic children, Native American children, Asian American children. And with the stroke of a pen, this is a life-changing policy that will make such a difference. And I want to just say a point for women of color. The child tax credit amplifies pay inequity because if you earn less, you get a smaller credit. Who earns less? women and women of color. This fixes it. So this is about women and mothers, and it's their tax credit. I must also have to mention the reinstatement of the expanding the desperately needed family and medical leave policies that were created last year. This morning's news, 2.5 million women left the workforce, most of whom are mothers, not through any fault of their own. This is the moment for paid family and medical leave, and thank you for that. So much at stake, my friends. Making strides is what this moment of opportunity offers to all of us. We must move the Biden-Harris rescue plan forward as rapidly as possible because we need to deliver relief to the people that represent us and who count on us. And thank you so much. And now, what a great pleasure it is for me to introduce Senator Cortez Masto, making history as the first woman from Nevada and the first Latina ever elected to the U.S. Senate, with a tremendous record on issues that face women and particularly service women as well. With that said, Senator, to you.
Chair DeLauro, oh my goodness, your passion just comes through. You can tell. You've been a trailblazer. Thank you so much to our incredible Vice President Harris. Thank you for pulling this roundtable together. All of the advocates, all of my colleagues, thank you so much for your continued compassion and advocacy around these issues. As you know, I come from Nevada. We have been so hard hit because of this pandemic. Our tourism and travel industry has been devastated. Because of that, we have led really the country in the worst unemployment rates. Last spring, unemployment in Nevada was higher than the national rate during the worst of our Great Depression, and it is still over 9%. Now think about this. Who is part of that workforce? Mainly women. You know, the pandemic has hit disproportionately here in Nevada. Women from our Black communities, Latino, AAPI, Native American communities have been so hard hit. These are, and we've all just talked about, these are women who really most often are putting food on the table. They're taking care of their children. They're worried about the education. They're trying to get access to healthcare for everybody in the families. That's why we need the American Rescue Plan to deliver immediate relief to our working families. The plan will get more money into their hands to keep them afloat until we can bring the pandemic under control and our economy can recover. Do not underestimate the impacts from enhanced unemployment benefits, pandemic unemployment assistance, and economic payments that have come directly into our families. They are a lifeline, and we have to continue this. I will tell you, my biggest concern in looking at these unemployment rates is the hospitality industry for those states that rely on that revenue and those families who rely on it for their safety and security. We're going to be the last to come out of this. So we continue to need relief, and the American Rescue Plan is that lifeline. That's why I cannot stress enough. We have to support this plan that the administration is pushing through for all of our families, for the women and children right now who are struggling during this pandemic. So I look forward to bipartisan support. I will be there working on behalf in the Senate with my colleagues to make sure we do everything we can to pass this American Rescue Plan. Now, with that said, I get the opportunity to introduce an incredible trailblazer of her own, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I have been so excited to be able to introduce her and watch the work that she has done over the years for women and children and our families. And so, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, it is such a pleasure to be able to introduce you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto, for that very kind introduction. Thank you so much for your tremendous leadership. And I want to thank our Vice President Harris for inviting me to join with you today. And I can say with certainty, Vice President Harris, that California and your hometown of Oakland and Berkeley, California, we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
We all know, so proud. We all know that this pandemic has disproportionately impacted communities of color, indigenous communities, and women, especially women of color. This crisis has plunged more than 8 million more people into poverty since last year. About 1 in 7 households nationwide, including more than 1 in 5 and Latino households, and many Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Native American households are struggling just to secure the food that they need. As a single mother, yes, I raised 2 young, phenomenal boys. And I had some very difficult times, and I raised them on food stamps. And I can assure you that there is nothing worse than seeing your children go hungry.
Yeah.
Food assistance served as a bridge over troubled waters for me. And so many struggling families now are in desperately need of that. We must deliver for women and families. The American Rescue Plan, it will help keep hunger at bay for around 40 million Americans by extending the 15% SNAP benefit increase. It will also invest billions to help women, infants, and children get the food that they need in all 50 states and US territories. It will partner with restaurants to feed American families and keep restaurant workers on the job. And yes, it will provide administrative support for state anti-hunger and nutrition programs. We also know that in order to recover from this economic crisis, we must first crush this virus. The Biden-Harris administration, their commitment to getting every person vaccinated will set us on the right track to recovery. The American Rescue Plan invests $50 billion in a massive expansion of COVID testing resources and addresses racial health disparities by investing in equitable vaccine distribution and expanding community health centers in underserved communities and more. Low-income workers and communities of color, especially women, are facing difficult times. The American Rescue Plan is a comprehensive plan that will serve as our bridge over troubled waters. It's time to pass this proposal in Congress so that we can build back better and, yes, impact and save the lives and the livelihoods of women and children and families and people of color and all Americans. So thank you again. I now am proud to turn this back over to our Madame Vice President, Kamala Harris.